produced to enable people to deliver this content. And each of those points are aligned. Each Common Core point has like a, I don't know what the numbering scheme is, like L2.46. And that means principle, you should teach whatever, how to be angry or something. It's all aligned and everything is mapped in. So let's go down one more. What are these other ones? Well, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I'll give you just what it is. Some of these books that are assigned to the students, they call it an exemplar reading list. And what they'll always say is, oh, those aren't required readings. Those are just exemplar readings. And those are an example of the type of book that we think would be useful for kids to read. And, okay, so there's always a way out. Hey, this content, I got a problem with it. Oh, no, these are just standards. It's not the curriculum. But this drives everything else. You look at the book list. Oh, no, those are not required. Those are just suggestions. Well, okay. Don't you think a teacher is going to look at something, or a school board, and going to say, okay, what are we supposed to teach? Well, what are the suggestions? Let's go look at that. Let's do that. And what happens is you have companies, like the Junior Library Guild, which take these exemplar reading lists and make them available. And then, like Oldham County paid $17,000 last year for a subscription to this Junior Library Guild, and now they can pull and get these books, copies of the books in the schools so that students can use them, teachers can use them for class, etc. Because they're on the exemplar reading list. And we're going to talk about some of these books. It's pretty wild. Okay, let's look at the next one. Below this, below the actual resources and materials, now you actually start constructing a curriculum. Okay, we've got the material, we got the standards, we got some stuff. Let's hook it together and let's make a curriculum. Let's have something we can actually deliver. So the curriculum is what is supposed to be defined. I asked my son's teacher, hey, can I get a copy of the curriculum? Well, I don't know. You got to talk to the principal. Talk to the principal. How do I get a copy of the curriculum? Well, we don't have that. That's given to us by the school district. So I went over to the school district. How can I get a copy of the curriculum? Oh, this comes from the state. So I called the state. No, this is part of the school district. All right, dude, I'm kind of losing some gas mileage here. Okay, so I go back to the school district. They told me that you guys do the curriculum. Well, let me put you in contact with the chief legal counsel. So I'm like, okay. So I talked to her for a while, and probably like an hour. And then I said, okay, well, she said, okay, well, send me an email, tell me what you want, and we'll process your email. I said, okay, cool. So I sent her a thing. I said, look, I'm concerned about all this Common Core stuff, and I want to see what the curriculum is. And I got a reply. It was about a month later. I'll show you the reply. Let's see if I can find it. Right here. Okay. How can you access the curriculum? Again, I've driven all over town, called all kinds of people, talked to the chief legal counsel, the chief curriculum officer for the school district, bunch of stuff. With the adoption of the new core standards, districts are spending a lot of time and money, publicly funded school districts, developing their own curriculum documents. Because of this, our chief academic officer, Anita Davis, has password protected the district's completed curriculum documents to prevent other districts from copying the instructional department's work and using it in their own districts. When I discussed this, she mentioned she'd spoken with you about the curriculum. Yeah, that it wasn't available. If you still have questions or need to review it, let me know and I'll try to arrange a meeting for you to come, during which the curriculum documents will be available for your review. So I go to this secret meeting, which I didn't, and I look behind closed doors and they show me the curriculum. And I go home. That's not what I want. This is a public document. We're taxpayers. This is the open document. This is illegal. Open records policy, right? Isn't that what it's called? This is illegal. And so when you try to get the curriculum, all right, so I've got some concerns. Well, it's password protected. Okay, I just spoke last week, maybe a week ago, at the Orange County, Oldham County School Board, and I asked for the curriculum again. And she came up and she was flaming mad at me. I'm down 2 people in my, I can't put that information available. It's got tests in it. There's tests in the curriculum. Okay, lady, you told me that it was going to be available over the summer. You told me to wait. I've talked to this lady like 4 times, and there's no information. So I can't get the curriculum. And then she tells me, hey, the curriculum is not going to have what you're looking for. The curriculum is just high level. I'm like, okay, well, how do I find out what you're teaching our kids?
Right.
How do I get this information? And she's in my face like this, and it was pretty incredible. The superintendent came over as well. And I had read a snippet from a book that a parent had contacted me that her child was being read aloud in class, and they attacked me for that, and I've got a thing in here as well on that. So there's some other stuff in here. We're going to talk about this is all content-related stuff. It's one segment of Common Core. There's a whole other segment about the database, the surveillance on our kids, data mining, tracking of information, hundreds of fields. I've got a whole thing here on the National Education Data Model. Let me show you this bad boy. Okay, this is printed in about, this is smaller than the legal print on the back of a pharmaceutical. Okay, these are the fields in the database. So every field, identification of kid, information gathered about an individual's needs for special programs and services. They've got stuff in here about the number of hours they spend with grandma at home in a week. It's just crazy stuff. I mean, there's 55 pages, and this is like literally like 5-point font, and it's 55 pages. So when I asked them about the data, and I said, if I pull my kids out of the school system, can you like wipe all that stuff? Here's the response, number 3. And so I'm kind of mixing in some of the data stuff because it's in here. Permanent school records cannot be deleted. We are required by law to maintain permanent school records indefinitely. Okay, is that true, first of all? And if it is, I've got a problem. I think Dick Ennis would have strong objections to this particular point. Government's managing information on my kids indefinitely with all this government encroachment and other things. I've got a son, who you already saw a picture of, he's got Asperger's. And so he has medication that he's on. Went through the whole system there in the school district. We put him through because they said they had resources available to help him. And we went the whole year. We started in August before school started. By the end of April, they said, well, we've studied it. And even though he had 2 separate independent diagnoses from physicians, a 21-year-old girl who's a school psychologist overruled that and said, no, he doesn't qualify. And so we said, what the heck we've been doing for 8 months? Well, you're lucky. Some people, it's 9 months. Well, thank you very little. So it's kind of like, you start looking at this in the context of healthcare, wait times, Canadian healthcare system, and education. What's going on here? Okay, so let's see what the other one. What information has been collected on my children? So this was a whole email, just kind of mind-boggling stuff. Okay, so that's the curriculum. Basically, you can't get it. Now, Jefferson County seemed to have it available online last year. My wife found it, but then I tried to look it up. I couldn't find it. So they either moved it or maybe they password protected it. I don't know. If it's so great, why do you hide it? And then what was just classic, I went on the curriculum page that they do have for Oakland County, and there's some little blurb that it's not the curriculum, it's just like, our curriculum is awesome. But on the bottom, it says, reference, Maryland school districts. I'm thinking, so you poached it from Maryland, but you don't want some other schools that poached it from you. And isn't that, we talk about the basis of the American religion, to help your fellow man. Shouldn't our taxpayer dollars, if we have a truly exceptional program, why not walk down to Hazard, Kentucky and say, here, have it. Now, we're going to talk about something else too, which is, I'll inject it right now, it's a little bit out of order as well, but the state of Massachusetts, before all this Common Core stuff, was #1 in 11 content areas nationwide. They had an awesome educational material curriculum. They had content standards. They had curriculum. And they had assessments, which are tests. They were awesome. They were #1. They weren't 7, 8, 9, top third. They were #1. That material, Dick Ennis sent an email last week asking Sandra Stotsky, who we've already mentioned as an authority on this whole thing, you know what? That whole thing, public domain, free. Take it. Do whatever the heck you want with it. That's what you do when you have the best. public funds were used to create that. We've got the best system, and we'd be honored if you would use it. Now, what if you have a system that's got some challenges? You hide it, you password protect it, you don't let people take it, you copyright the heck out of it. That's not the American ideal, especially in the public sector. Now, if this were a private entity, if these are the chip configurations for Apple's new crazy hard drive, well, that's intellectual property. That's private industry. But this is not. This is government. This is education. This is our children. It is public money. So, let's see. So the curriculum, we talked about that. Okay. All right, now the next one. So once you've got a curriculum, now you said, this is our curriculum for Oldham County or whatever county. And then this goes to the schools. And now the teachers and so forth are supposed to take that curriculum and do something with it. So you can't necessarily just purely teach right out of the curriculum. You create lesson plans, actual instruction in the classroom. You get a list, okay, on Thursday we're going to read chapter 7, and we're going to do this and that. So that's where it gets done. Now, you want to get down to a little bit lower level, let's start looking at some of this stuff. Because this is where the proverbial rubber hits the road. In here, let's see. Let's go into the book section here. Okay, right here. Okay, here's one. This was sent. I was made aware of this particular book because a lady who is a friend of ours, she was divorced and went back to school, got her teaching degree, finished up her school, very proud, going to start teaching. And she's friends with Kim, and she came over, and Kim was saying, hey, you heard about Common Core? So this teacher just graduated, goes in and starts studying about this stuff. She dives in deep, and she's like, oh my gosh, I just spent 3 years or whatever it was to finish her education. I can't do this. This is like, I can't do this. So she stopped teaching. She didn't start. She got a job doing, I don't know, insurance or something. She loves it. She works from home. She's really happy. But because she knew about our history, that we were interested in what's going on here, about 3 weeks ago she called my wife and said, you know, my daughter was in school in 8th grade, and the teacher said to the children, we're going to be reading some mature content. So if you feel like you're not mature enough, then you can go in the hallway. Okay, so, all right. So this girl raises her hand and says, you know, I'll go in the hallway. Okay, now, 8th grade girl, you know, class, I mean, that takes some courage. So my kids, courage is doing the right thing even though you're afraid. And she did it. Now, it exposed you to ridicule in class. Oh, hey, there's the immature one. Okay, well, let's look at this book. This book is called Copper Sun. Okay? Now, here's a snippet from Amazon. Okay, now talk about our American heritage. There is a veritable cornucopia of beautiful literature to select from. Would you reach into that and grab this? A 15-year-old African girl's journey through American slavery. Okay. The story begins in Amari's Ashanti village. By the idyllic scene explodes into bloodshed when slavers arrive and murder her family. Amari and her beloved Bessa are shackled, and so begins the account of impossible horrors from the slave port, the Middle Passage, and auction on American shores. Okay, so it's a story about slavery. Okay, that happened. Where a rice plantation owner buys Amari for his 16-year-old son's sexual enjoyment. In brutal specifics, Draper, the author, shows the inhumanity. Amari is systematically raped on the slave ship and on the plantation, and a slave child is used as alligator bait by white teenagers. I mean, you're going to sit down and write a story. How about we have some white teenagers and like black baby, we feed them to alligators. Awesome! It says brutal detail about repeated rape or something. I mean, is this what you read? This is mature content. So if you're immature in 8th grade, then you stand in the hallway. Saul Alinsky's 4th rule, I think it's the 4th rule. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. says the opposition uses it and it infuriates you, which they use to their benefit. They ridicule you. So this girl was subjected to ridicule for what? Not wanting to read this? Okay, let's look at another one. That's Copper Sun. Now, not only is this just Copper Sun, oh, that's just a crazy book out there, you know. That's just some teacher that was, you know, on his own. He was rogue. That's what they told me. While I was talking to the chief curriculum officer, and she's telling me, that's a rogue teacher, and he just picked some random book. Meanwhile, the other school board administrators are like screwing around it. And they come over, hell no, this wasn't, we're doing this across the district. This wasn't anything special. It's like, didn't you just say that this was a rogue teacher? And now it's all pervasive through the school district? And the superintendent was like, well, hey, these kinds of things happen. I said, well, they do. Okay, slavery happened a long time ago, and okay, let's read about it. Babies to alligators and brutal rape and stuff, dude. You serious? 8th graders? And this was a single man with no children reading to 8th grade girls.
Presented as fiction?
Fiction.
Not, I mean, they didn't say that this was history.
They didn't say it was history, but faction. You know, kind of,
yeah.
This type of thing happened. Okay, it's I mean, pretty crazy. Okay, now, they were saying that this is just random teachers. Well, here's the Common Core line thing for it. And this thing is 8 pages long. So you go through every point, and you're not just reading the book, you are analyzing all these points and everything. 8 pages worth of information about this. What happened to, like, Tom Sawyer? Or, like, To Kill a Mockingbird or something? Or, you know, Macbeth? So, I mean, is this what you really need to go? Okay, now, okay, fine. So there's some history that we're teaching there. Okay. What about this? Dreaming in Cuban. Now, I looked this up because I'm like, are you kidding me? And I've seen some of these other, so I looked, Oldham County High School right there. Dreaming in Cuban. Now, you probably can't see that. You probably don't want to see it. But just a few kind of tidbits here. This is available in the library for the high school kids, right? I mean, seriously? And this is under the guise of academic freedom, intellectual curiosity, mature reading, rigorous reading, and I read the thing on the school district's library page where they had a whole thing on censoring books, book censoring. Okay, as an adult, I'm okay if they have a book like this in the Oldham County Library.
What grade is this?
This is for mature readers, which would be high school. High school. They had it in junior high as well, though. I think we went through and kind of checked it. But I'm okay as kind of the libertarian side of me basically says, hey, look, if some dude wants to go down to the library, I mean, okay. But they use that book censoring language. Again, they just copied it from some other source and put it on the school district's website. Now, there's a difference between the public library and the school. And they're not the same thing. And you read this article about censoring, man, you think that aliens came down with, you know, tin-foil hats that are just to be feared. You know, these people, anybody who would censor, what drives these kind of people? I mean, the language is pretty offensive by itself. Okay, now this is one book. Here's another one. Well, where did the other one go? There's another one that's called The Bluest Eye. Holy moly. I might have it here somewhere. The Bluest Eye. This one's a real gem.
Oldham High School?
North Oldham. I mean, all the high schools have it. Okay, and here they are. You just go check. Not only they have it, they've got like 7 versions of it. I mean, is this what McGuffey had in mind?
And the teacher's grade on this?
This one, I haven't seen the assignment of a teacher reading this in Oldham County schools, but this book's in the library, and the Copper Sun is one that they are reading in the classrooms. This is part of the exemplar reading list for Common Core.
We have to say one thing.
Yes.
because you're mentioning the high schools. Our granddaughter, one of our grandchildren, happened to come home one day. She was staying in class at that point, so we're going to take somebody with us just momentarily, that day. And she brought a book in and she opened it up from the library in Gray Elementary School. She immediately brought it to her grandpa and wanted to fill it out as part of her conclusion. And it was everything's bad. It's the one just showing
The thing is,
in the high school.
you show this to, you talk to other people. I talked to the school superintendent, and it's like, they view it as, these are mature readers. These are mature readers in our school. They need to, this is rigorous reading, and we're trying to expose. Come on, dude. That's your best argument. This is really what you're trying to teach the kids. This is, come on, what leg do you have to stand on, man? And they're attacking me. Some kind of, she said, you just want to control the kids. Grief. So, okay, now, so I looked this up. And I'm like, is this legal? What's going on here? I found some case law. Here's some stuff. This isn't the case law, but this is the school district's policy, actually the state's policy on explicit material. Let me put it up at the top. This is the policy on explicit material. They define that no explicit material can go into the schools. You've got to monitor the computers. You've got to track them down with filtering 24/7. Everything's going to be bad if this explicit material gets in. So you overcompensate on one side. And then you open the door and buy the books and stack them on your shelf.
So you can objectify your high school girls in the classroom.
It's incredible. So you purchase the books and put them on the shelf, but if you try to get them on the computer, hey, that's explicit material. But they just walk in the front door. That's called straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. It's just, your priorities are wrong, man. This is not cool. Now, there's another case here, which is right here. I mean, this is pretty incredible. This case was from 1987. Here in Kentucky, Lincoln County, there was a teacher who on the last day of school in 1987, kids are screwing around, last day of school, eating pizza, whatever. She got Pink Floyd, The Wall, and threw it in the DVD player, CD or VHS cassette or whatever. She put it in a punch card reader. And they watched the Wall. Kids were screwing around, running around, shooting squirt guns and stuff like that. But at this time in 1987, she was summarily terminated by the school for conduct unbecoming a teacher. She countered and appealed it and said, hey, wait a minute, you're violating my First Amendment rights. I have rights of freedom of expression. Furthermore, I didn't know what was on that tape. I'd never seen it. And the court appealed it and gave her back pay and everything else. So it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says, not so fast. Your freedom of expression is protected. But in the environment of a school, it's not. This is conduct unbecoming of a teacher. And they laid out what the reason and the rationale for education was. The rationale for education is to teach and to pass on these ideals of freedom and liberty onto the next generation. Exactly what we've been saying the whole time. This is, I don't know of any newer case that would trump this. But if conduct unbecoming of a teacher is a teacher who accidentally puts in, whatever she said, a VHS tape for The Wall on the last day of school, hadn't even seen it, whatever, and that counts as a Supreme Court case where she's summarily terminated, what does it count when a single man sits down with a 13-year-old girl and reads to her about brutal rape, and those who are opposed to it sit in the hallway at the shame of their classmates? I mean, what? What? No comment. There's nothing more to say. Okay. So that is some of the material. Now let me show you a little bit more. This is something on my son. Here he is. This little dude is basically Dennis the Menace right here. This guy is a piece of work, and I love him with all my heart. He was in first grade, this is Soldier, and he came home from school. Actually, my wife, he had Asperger's, so my wife's like, hey, I'm going to gear him up. We're going to get, she worked with him every day, taught him how to read before he even started first grade, and he was an excellent reader. In fact, he was so advanced that when he was in first grade, he went all the way up to the third grade, and he was passing the third grade. So instead of saying, hey, dude, 3 plus 1 is 4, so we're going to give you fourth grade, they said, no, we're going to send you to the library now, so that you can read books in the library. On the computer. Okay, so they take my son, they sign him up, they create an online account for him on storyonline.net, storybookonline.net, okay, which is a website sponsored by the Screen Actors Guild, where you have celebrities that read kids' books about global warming and about FDR and all these things that they read these books so that children can learn the cadence and rhythm of reading. Because you as a teacher can't do it just sitting there with a piece of paper reading to your class. You know, we would sit down, a teacher would sit down and read us Bill Pete stories. Beautiful. Or we read, we talk about, that's what I did in first grade. Right? So now, Jason Alexander from Seinfeld is reading a book to my son called Daddy, Are You the Tooth Fairy? Okay? So the book is, you can't always trust your parents because they lie to you. Daddy, you're the tooth fairy, aren't you? You told me there was a tooth fairy. And when he came home that day, he was not very happy. He came home and he said, the tooth fairy's not real. And Kim was like, what do you mean? What do you do? Yeah, they showed me at school that the tooth fairy's not real. And he was, what do you say? I promised that, he's a kid, he's 7. He's got a full rack of teeth. He's got a whole bunch to go. So anyway, we pulled Soldier out of school. We homeschooled him. What's that? Yeah, they created an account for him online without our permission, whatever. So we pulled Soldier. Last week, lost all his teeth. The 3 of them came out, I think, at once. And sure enough, he put his tooth in his thing and he was watching it. And he came out, the tooth fairy came! I knew she was real. Now, is the tooth fairy real? She's right here. But can't we protect the innocence of a 7-year-old child? Come on. What do we got? Now the tooth fairy, the dynamics of physics, come on, man, it's a 7. Okay, so that's one thing. So this was something that, to me, I mean, just kind of beyond the pill. You're telling my kids, and what's the basis? What's the rationale for this? The rationale behind this, cognitive dissonance. I love my parents, but they don't tell me the truth. Why would you do that? For what possible reason? Okay, so let's go a little bit more. Well, there's some other stuff. I went to his book fair. And this was the book fair thing about, so this, my son's 7. Like this guy was talking about social justice with the kids. This is about there's some of this in the book about scabs. Scab is a dirty word around here. It means you cross the picket line and dig coal when the miners are on strike. You help the bosses and hurt the workers. Paul would never do that. It says, don't scab for the bosses. Don't listen to their lies. Dude, where's like, Woody Woodpecker? So, I mean, okay, this is the type of stuff. And you can just see it all falls in line with the strategy you teach the children about the working class and about class distinctions and divisions. And aren't we about embracing people? Aren't we about all men are created equal? Aren't we about we all have the same chance? Why teach these divisions and this emotional language, as they call it in those Common Core specs? Okay, so that's a couple lesson plans. We talked about Paducah, Kentucky, when they had the kids stomping on the flag. Again, go look up cognitive dissonance. It's huge. It's like taking a long time to read. But it's about how you create these shifts. When something happens, if PTSD or something, some shocking event that happens, there's something that happens in the brain. I mean, there's some synapse rewiring when shocking events happen. And that's kind of the goal on some of these things, is to really kind of drive that in. Let's see, we got some others. Tooth Fairy. Oh, I got a beauty right here too. Let's see if I can find this. Not this. Well, I'll show you this one. But I got another one that's pretty cool. This is kind of the net result of this. I have a friend who's, I mentioned, a substitute teacher. He got some writing from like a 9th grade English class in Oldham County. And this is just one. There was like a stack. He like cut the names off and made a photocopy. And I'm thinking, okay, so the net result of all this, I'm going to read this and see if you can hang tough. Hold on to your chair. This is about Shakespeare. The assignment was for the students to write about Shakespeare, what they learned. In a small town, Shakespeare, he was a great English writer and playwright. He lived in England with a lowercase e. That when Elizabeth took over lead in England, and that when she leading to Shakespeare. She liked to take English poets, musician, and that how it made look up to him. The London was the theater capital of England. Then Shakespeare changed his language. He was very aromatic and entertaining. He was a drama, tragedy, comic relief. So Shakespeare knew Elizabeth by the theater. The end. Now, this is just one. It's not just like, you know, there was a stack, there was like 10, and this is a good one. This is 9th grade.
Oh my God.
Now, I don't say, I mean, this isn't everybody in Oldham County. There's some kids that are phenomenal. But if your focus is on bringing up the rear, I think we have a candidate.
The focus is that there never is a rear.
There's no base.
Yeah.
So if this is the net, is this what we're producing? Come on, man. Now, you're going to have some distribution of kids, right? I mean, not everyone's on the top, and not everyone needs to go to college. Sorry, you know. It's not like a big, you know. If you see the Mike Rowe stuff where he's talking about, you know, hard work, that guy's awesome. You know, it's not about putting down people or mocking them, but I'm just saying that if this is your goal, and this is the kind of stuff that's getting produced, and this isn't an outlier. This is a class of 20 students. There's a copy about 10 of them, and it's pretty wild. Okay, now let me go back to that other one that I was trying to find. Okay, this is a beauty. Okay. All right, my daughter was 4. Sunny. She's hilarious, too. Sunny Brooke was in preschool in Oldham County. We get this letter in early April of this year. Yeah. Operation Safe Kids. What's the quote? He who trades liberty for safety deserves neither and shall deserves neither and shall have none, or something like that. So here this is. The United States Secret Service. On April 11th, you know, I can hear the little, you know, those old shows, the Morse code. On April 11th, at Oldham County Preschool, a representative of the United States Secret Service will be providing a digitally captured photograph and fingerprints, inkless, of each child using the Children's Identification System by implementing the latest technology. And this is published in 1995. The United States Secret Service can produce a document containing the child's photograph. Can you imagine the technology? A document with a photograph and fingerprints, as well as spaces for biographical information, like a line where you can write the biographical information. This is incredible. To be completed by the parent and guardian. Okay, this was during the sequester that was going to kill us all. Okay, so I called the school. Yes, Mr. Shreve. I said, I just got a letter, like that the U.S. Secret Service is going to be fingerprinting my daughter and taking photographs. I go, really? She says, well, don't worry. This is just a parent who works with the Secret Service, and he's volunteering his time. I said, ma'am, we've got the latest technology in inkless fingerprinting. He just kind of hauls that around and does fingerprint fairs. And she says, oh, no, this is an official government program. I said, didn't you just say it was a volunteer? Well, what's the problem with it? And I said, well, what's the purpose of it? And she said, well, if your child ever gets stolen, we will have a picture. And I said, ma'am, I have 25,000. Up her nose, the backside of her hair. people don't have a picture of their kid. And I said, you know what? You got a little personal responsibility there. You know, my daughter doesn't need to be photographed and fingerprinted by the United States Secret Service. And she says, don't worry, we delete everything when they leave. I said, you're kidding. So now we have a teacher, who's a friend who's an assistant teacher there, and she said it was crazy. She said when these dudes rolled up, she said it was like the Men in Black. It wasn't teachers with little graham crackers. She said these guys rolled up, brought the thing in, and they had a separate room, and the teachers didn't go in the room. They went in, they fingerprinted these kids. Well, we held our daughter home that day. And the next week, we pulled her out and started homeschooling her as well. So this, again, during the sequester. Now I started looking this up. Okay, you're going to get some photographs, and you're going to save some kids. Okay, so I looked this program up. In the 2011 annual report of the U.S. government, there's a little section in it from the Secret Service about this wonderful program called Operation Safe Kids. And something like in 2011, they fingerprinted, I think it was like 6,700 children across the United States. Wow, that's awesome. Next year, we're going to hit 7,000. So think of these 6,700 kids. How many kids were there? 74 million. So what's your penetration rate? 0.0008% or something like that. Ridiculous. Completely useless. Abject failure. If you're going to cover the children in the United States and have fingerprints for them, and your hit rate is 0.008%, you are failing. Worse, you're just trying to get us to think that the government is our friend. Because this is useless. How many children have been captured or retrieved or saved by this system? I mean, with that kind of a hit rate, and the federal government coming in, it can be for nothing else other than show. Because it's completely ineffectual. As an engineer, you look at that kind of success rate, and you know, that's not very good. So that's another thing that I found pretty wild. You know, a lot of these things that are getting produced with these children. Now, you know, I don't want to make fun of this little girl, but this is the kind of thing. We've got a trophy generation of kids. You're all wonderful. You're all special. Everyone's going to save the world, and you're going to. So I will after college, because everyone has to go to college, and if you don't go to college, you're a failure. After college, I will build a solar-powered recycling machine with unicorns. I mean, one aspect of this is like, okay, this is cool. You got some girl empowered, awesome. But in the milieu, in the context of all this other stuff, when the hair on the back of my head is already a little bit raised, something like this is kind of like, just one more thing. What is this? What about, you know, I don't know. It's just something about this particular concept that everyone's going to, you know, we're going to form part of the collective, and we're just going to slot right in, and we're going to save humanity from ourselves. So anyway, this gets down to the actual, on the board here, actual classroom instruction, content delivery, and school environment. Then the layer below that is kind of take-home materials. And one of the things that we found is the materials that come home, we didn't find stuff that came home. We didn't get things. And now this may be different for other parents, but when we were in California for our older daughter, we got stuff home all the time. We would go to school, we would volunteer. My wife and I volunteer probably 2-3 times a week. When we tried to volunteer out here, they didn't want us in the classroom. We asked for material that come home, nothing comes home. Spelling tests and things that, nothing came home. There was nothing there. And other parents we've talked to, they say, you know, the math comes home, they got this fuzzy math, so they're teaching math instead of the normal math that we learned, which is, you know, you take the numbers and you add them up and carry the one, and you know, boom, there's your answer. They don't teach that. There's different things. If you're going to add up 27 plus 13, you draw 27 plus 13 dots. Okay, well, there's some, okay, conceptually, that's what it is. But what kind of idiot would draw, you know, that many dots? That's conceptually, you can tell, but if a kid puts the right answer and gets marked wrong, then we have a problem again. It's just weird. So I haven't even gone into all the other stuff on math and the science stuff. There's a lot of information that's out there. let's see, so basically, I've just hit some of the stuff as a parent. Again, I'm not like some crazy activist professional doing this type of stuff. I'm just a dad. I got kids home with my daughter babysitting them, and I came up with my wife. We're going to go to Taco Bell on the way home. I'm not like a professional dude at doing this. I'm just a parent who's seen this stuff and has been blown away and feels some moral obligation to share what I've seen with others. So that's what I'm doing. Now, in addition to this, which is the content, the material and common core, and some of the underlying basis, there's a whole other category, which is all the data surveillance, all the tracking of kids. There's a report called Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance. That document is shocking. We're talking about hooking little contraptions up to kids, watching their eyelids flicker, seeing their blood pressure flows. For what purpose? What are you doing, man? It's like a lab rat. What's the point of that? What happened with basic, McGuffey style American education? Basics of arithmetic and writing, etc. So there's the whole area of the data surveillance, and that is its own evening lecture. Another one is just simply the cost. The cost to implement this system, to completely revise all of this stuff, buy all new materials, all the computers that go with it, the assessments, the amount of time. I went to one of the board meetings about 6 months ago, and there was a guy that got up who's responsible for doing the teacher assessments. And basically his take was that at each school, they're going to need to hire a new full-time person just to manage the assessments of the teachers and the students at that school. Well, last year in Oldham County, they had to let go of 50 employees, which includes 30 teachers. Now, if you look at and add up the schools, and you're going to add a new person just to assess the teacher's professional development, where are we spending our money? We're shifting it from one area to another area just to study the teachers. And the reason is to ensure conformity. To ensure conformity in the system. Because if this is going to be a top-down government approach, the values and the rights of the individual and local control is a thing that is not going to be tolerated. Now,
we're going to be the steel toe on the jackboot.
it's exactly what it is. I mean, people call us crazy for that, but the bottom line is we're sitting here watching it happen. And my fears about what's going into this thing, as I drilled down, you can see that I didn't ever get the curriculum, but I still went around and found what they're teaching in the classroom. And that's what I found. And this isn't something in Southern California or somewhere in New York. This is like 5 miles from my house with my kids. And it's going on across the country. Now, I want to finish up with a poem, which talks about a lot of these elements. And if we don't learn the lessons of the past, we're bound to repeat them. The poem is The Gods of the Copybook Headings. What's that? It's called The Gods of the Copybook Headings. It's written by Rudyard Kipling, the same guy that wrote If and Jungle Book. Yes?
Didn't that come up in the presidential election?
I'm not sure. It might have.
It did, because one of the, I'm thinking Romney read it. And with Brownlee, ABC Brownlee announced it for this insanity that he's weathering. Until he found out, it went all over. So he found
Oh, yeah.
out it was Rudyard.
It's Kipling. It starts out, it says, as I pass through my incarnations, through every age and race, I make my proper prostrations to the gods of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall. But the gods of the copybook heading, I notice, outlast them all. Let me inject real fast. Copybook headings, let me just give you a quick intro. Copybook headings were little books that were used by British school children. I have a book somewhere. But they were little writing books that they had. And every page in the copybook would have a maxim at the top. If you don't work, you die. A stitch in time saves 9. Little maxims, little wisdom collected from humanity's experiences over the eons. And the kids, the assignment that they had, they would write these maxims down to practice their penmanship, keep them busy. But at the same time, they're ingraining and imprinting on their mind what these principles are. It's how you pass on. Freedom is not passed in the bloodstream. It might be passed through multiple repetition of the penmanship, but some way to convey that to the children. So in this poem, it talks about the marketplace and the gods of the copybook headings. The gods of the copybook headings basically just means the collective earned knowledge of man. You know, what experiences have we? What are the time-honored principles that matter? The marketplace here isn't the marketplace in the sense of Adam Smith and free markets. it's more the plaza, downtown, people selling their wares. And so, and there's a reference in here about Stilton. Stilton is a type of British cheese. It is not a Dutch cheese, it's a British cheese. So there's kind of a funny thing in there. But let me do it again, I'll start at the top. As I pass through my incarnations, through every age and race, I make my proper prostrations to the gods of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall. And the gods of the copybook headings, I notice outlast them all. We were living in trees when they met us. They showed us each in turn that water would certainly wet us, as fire would certainly burn. But we found them lacking in uplift, vision, breadth of mind. So we left them to teach the gorillas while we followed the march of mankind. We moved as the Spirit listed. They never altered their pace, being neither cloud nor windborne, like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up with our progress, and presently word would come that a tribe had been wiped off its ice field, where the lights had gone out in Rome. With the hopes that this world is built on, they were utterly out of touch. They denied that the moon was Stilton. They denied she was even Dutch. They denied that wishes were horses. They denied that pig had wings. So we worship the gods of the market, which promise these beautiful things. In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised perpetual peace. We were promised perpetual peace. They swore if we gave up our weapons, that the wars of the tribes would cease. But when we disarmed, they sold us and delivered us bound to our foe. And the gods of the copybook heading said, stick to the devil you know. On the first Feminian sandstones, we were promised a fuller life, which started by loving our neighbor and ended by loving his wife. Till our women had no more children, and our men lost reason and faith. And the gods of the copybook heading said, the wages of sin are death. In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised abundance for all by robbing selected Peter to pay for collecting Paul. But though we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. And the gods of the copybook heading said, if you don't work, you die. And then the gods of the market tumbled, and their smooth-tongued wizards withdrew. And the hearts of the meanest were humbled, and begun to believe it was true, that all is not gold that glitters, that 2 and 2 make 4. And the gods of the copybook headings limped up to explain it once more. As it will be in the future, it was at the birth of man. There are only 4 things certain since social progress began. That the dog will return to his vomit, that the sow will return to her mire, that the burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire. And that after this is accomplished, and the brave new world begins, when all men are paid for existing, and no man must pay for his sins. As surely as water will wet us, and as surely as fire will burn, the gods of the copybook headings will terror and slaughter in return. Now that poem basically tells us that no matter what we do, there are certain innate attributes of mankind, certain strengths and certain weaknesses. And if we go out and try to start a brave new world on some crazy idea that undercuts these values and principles that have led to our success, then the future holds terror and slaughter. It's not that it brings that, but that's going to happen concurrently when you undercut the principles which led to your peace. As Americans, as citizens who are concerned about the future generations, we have an obligation to share this message about this top-down federal takeover of our education. We have an obligation to the next generation because this should not happen on our watch. We need to be involved and active as citizens, as parents, as grandparents, to make sure that this Common Core movement is replaced with something better. And that's a whole other story. Thank you.
As I said when I started this meeting, the theme of this meeting is the next step. And people, there was this note on the chair, here is the next step. I'd like to see a show of hands. Is there anybody here as upset as I was at what you saw tonight? I think everybody, right. And it says right on here, right on this sheet, it talks about Common Core and what we can do. And I have a state legislator here, Diane St. Onge. In fact, all the legislators were invited. She's the only one that showed up, and I'd like to thank her for showing up. What we need to do, we need to use the power of the people. You need to call at the bottom, you'll see the toll-free telephone number, the 1-800 number. That's the legislative hotline in Franklin. I want everybody to call it. Get your neighbors to call, get your friends to call, get your sons and daughters to call. I want to see a phone chain of tens of thousands of phone calls. Because as Diane will verify, when they get green slips on their desk, they react. And you tell them, you want at the bottom it says, tell the operator to leave a green slip with each member of the Senate Education Committee and the House Education Committee to stop Common Core. And on this list, it would tell you Common Core, we believe, was not incorporated, it was not state-led. It goes against everything that they passed on Senate Bill 1, and it's federally wrong. We need to stop it. So I implore you, we need to get this done. And if you haven't signed up, please do. I'd like to have your name, your email address, your phone number. If we have more meetings, maybe one day we'll all drive to Frankfurt, go to an education meeting, and protest what's being taught our children and our grandchildren, and I think we all would do it. I'd like to personally thank Steve and Kim for driving all the way from LaGrange. Speak at Oakland County, I said, I got to have you come up here and talk. And as everyone can see, I was right. I'd like to thank everybody who helped me put this meeting on. It takes a lot of work to do this. And I'd like to thank you people for coming. And again, please take the next step and make the phone call. Thank you.